In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a 12U sidecar rack for all your audio equipment. So I'm going to show you all of the stuff that you need to build it. I'll give you hints on where to get it from, and basically, end of it, you will be able to build yourself one of these, hopefully. I mean, you don't need a massive amount of skills, but you know, knowing how to use a saw and screw in some screws is pretty much all you need. So let's get started. So here I have the rack, and this is the rack what we are going to build. So I've emptied all the equipment out of my left rack. I actually need to build myself a third rack. So this is the rack carcass without the equipment in. Now, firstly, what we basically have is 12 U's down the of rack paneling down the sides, and then the actual rack. If you look here, so the gear goes into about here, and then there's basically this compartment underneath. Now the compartment here is used for the cables, the power supply. The cables kind of hang out the back of it, and the power supplies all kind of go in the bottom. So what we can do is kind of keep the power away from the audio cables. So it's a really simple build, it really is. And then we've obviously got 4 wheels on the bottom of it, so we can move it around if we need to. And then these are also lockable, so you have 2 at the front that are lockable, so you can lock them in place so they're not moving at all. So yeah, first things first, I'll show you the what we're actually going to need in order to be able to build one of these. So to build this rack, you are going to need a saw, 4 wheels, coasters I think they call these. Don't really know, to be honest. Wheels that go on the bottom, and these are just ones that are screwed. But what you want to get is 2 that have these locks on it. So if you get 2 with the locks, you can then lock it in place. We then need loads of these, which are just basically right angled kind of plates called corner braces. Loads of these screws. So these are small screws. So these are like I think they're 1.5 or something, but they're really small screws, really short screws. And you need some edging tape, which is for your furniture board. So I get my furniture board from B&Q. It's relatively cheap. I mean, a sheet 2.4 meters of this, 600 wide, I think is about 30 quid or something. And you know, the rack itself, the wood that you need for the rack, it costs about £50. You know, it's not a lot to build a nice rack. So this can be bought from B&Q. Obviously, if you're watching this and you're in another country, you don't have B&Q, you know, you can go any shop, any hardware store, and they'll sell furniture board. Now, one thing I will say is regarding this is make sure you can always get more, because let's say for argument's sake, I now need to build myself another rack. If I can't get this same color and this same design, I've got racks that are different colors. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of this video is I'm basically just going to copy this design. I'm laying it on and I'm going to draw around it basically. Now, first thing to do is make sure that the good edge is down here on, that's basically what you would consider a good edge. So now I'm basically going to draw around this, because what I want to do is I want to first of all cut out this section. What I'll try and do is, so that you've all got the measurements for this, is I'll try and actually measure it all up, and I'll put a diagram, put it in the description, and then you can download and basically copy the exact same measurements that I've done. So that there is the cutout. There's a line goes down there, I need to cut along there, up there, across there. Then that's my good edge that's going to be the face of it. What I'll do now is I'll cut this out, and I'll come back. I've got to cut 2 of these out. So there's got to be 2, 1 for each side, and they're identical. So once you've got one, do an identical one, and they're both going to be left and right sides of the rack. So there we have our 2 side panels cut. Now that they are cut, we start cutting the rest of it. So that's these two panels done. Now what we'll do is we'll do a top panel, which is 525 millimeters by, I think it is 200. So 525 by 200. Then we need one for here, which is 490 by 200. And we need one for the bottom, which I believe is also 200. Yep. So two at 490 by 200, one at 525 by 200, and that will give us that piece, and that piece. Then what that leaves us is to cut this piece afterwards, and then the base. And that's it, done. Right, so there we have our three pieces, 525, 490, 490, all by 200. That's for this piece, and this piece. Next, we'll do the base. Now the base is 450 by 525. So it's the same as that top, it's just 450. So you can buy sheets in already cut 450. Now the reason it's good to do this is because you'll get a piece which has a good edge there and a good edge there. So I'm going to cut this at 525. So there we have our 450 piece. Now that is going to be basically our base that then we're going to screw the wheels onto. So that's our base done. Now the last piece is this piece at the back. Now the reason for this piece is if we don't have this, we don't need this piece, but if we don't have it, what ends up happening is any cables that are in there, they fall out the back. So this just keeps it in a nice kind of tray so that all your power cables and your power leads are all in there. Because what I like to do in my racks is I like to put a power supply at the bottom. Then when the power supply is at the bottom, all the power supplies come out of this, out of the rack into the bottom and power. So you've just got one power supply going into the rack, and then everything is powered inside that rack. So all the cables go in here. So we don't necessarily need to have a precise measurement on this. It just needs to be high enough to keep the cables in. This one is 100 high. So we're doing 100 mil by 490, I believe. Yep, 490. So 490 by 100 mil. Right, so there we have our last piece. Now, all that's left to do is put it all together. So this is our base. This is this piece down the bottom here. So what we're going to do here is put our wheels on. Now, these two with the latches, which are these two, they go at the front, and I like to put the ones that don't have the latches at the back. I mean, you can get all four with latches if you want. I like to get just the two at the front, because then if I want to move it around, I just do the latches on the front, hit the latches on the front, and then it moves. Whereas if I had latches on the back that I can lock, I'd then have to go around the back of the rack, unlock them, and then I can move it. So I just use two. So first things first, let's screw these down. Right, so there we have the base of our rack. So you can see that is a nice base. Now the rack comes up, sits off of that. So the next thing we'll do is fit our sides. So we've got one that goes here and the other that goes on the other side. So we'll start by fitting this one. Now personally I like to lay it down like that and then build from there. So on this bit, what we're going to do is use these kind of right angle pieces, and we're just literally going to connect this side to this side right like that. Now what we do is we put one at the front and one at the back. Right, so there we have the two sides on. Now we've just got our pieces for in here, which hopefully will fit. So we have a piece that fits bang straight down into there. So that one. So that one goes into there. Then with the next one, we get the nice edge, which is that edge. and this one will fit into there. Next thing to do is to put the top on. So that is just going to go on the top there. Once that's on, we pretty much have a rack that is the same as this. We've just got to stick this back piece on. So there we have the rack built, and last thing to do is to put our rack rails in. So we're going to put these in like that, and then we've got another one to put at the bottom. 12 U's in total. Ideally, what you want to do is, if you're ordering these, obviously order a 12 U long one, and that will be just one rail. I'm kind of piecing 2 sets that I've already got together. So there we have the finished rack. Last thing to do is you've got some kind of rough edges. So what you do is you use this iron-on edging strip, which basically do that. Iron it on, so you just literally get an iron that on, and then cut off the excess, and do that on all of the edges that have exposed kind of where you've made the cuts. There's one here, one there, one there, one there, one at the back, one on the side there, and one on the side there. Then that's the rack done. I'm not going to do the iron-on edging now. I'm going to do that on Monday when I get back in, but I'll show you. Basically now, in theory, our gear nicely racks into the rack, and we have now 3 racks made. So yeah, that is how you build a rack, and that's probably taken me, I don't know, best part of an hour, even doing the video. So yeah, about an hour out of your day to just build a rack. I mean, a rack like that, I looked at them online and they're very similar specs. I pretty much looked at one that I really liked and copied the design for it, and they were retailing at about £400. That I've just built for, I think you're looking at probably about £70–80 when you factor in the wheels and the rails, probably about £80 once you factor in the rails as well. And yeah, if you're adequate kind of building just a little bit, you'll easily be able to do that. I mean, there's probably carpenters watching this maybe who, you know, do this in their trade, and they're like, oh yeah, you want to use this and you want to do that and you want to glue it and all this sort of stuff. That's all well and good, and yeah, if you were a carpenter, you'd probably make it very different. I'm not a carpenter. I'm putting this together because I like a nice custom build. I know I need 12 U's. If I wanted to, I could make it higher. If I wanted to, I could open this bottom piece up to put power supply in the bottom. I don't particularly want to. I like it there. So there's reasons to build in your own kind of studio furniture, and that is because you can custom build it. Like, I've got a custom built desk next door, and it's perfectly built for the amount of equipment that we have. So yeah, I think it's very, very, very good to be able to build your own kind of studio furniture, because you can build really nice studios. And yeah, so that is how you build a nice little 12U sidecar.